I don't want to do this, but I said I was going to, and I'm going to do my best. So I said I didn't know where to start, and maybe I should start from before I was even born or even thought of, or even my parents were thought of. And I'm pretty sure before even my grandparents were thought of, or they were just thinking of them. My great-grandfather is Wilson Earl Nichols. He was born and lived in around Jackson, Tennessee, and he served in World War I. I don't know much about him. I remember him as a little girl. I remember when I would visit my grandparents that I would always be excited that Papa was there. But I don't know much about him. I've been told stories, and he was a mean man. He was mean to his wife, that my father called Mama, my grandfather's mother. And he had 3 children. He had my Aunt Mary, and then he had twins, which were my Big Daddy, and his twin sister, Ann. What I know is he worked at a train station, or for the railroad, let me rephrase. He worked for the railroad, and but he served in World War I, and during World War I, Woodrow Wilson was the president, and the Bryce Report was the announcement of what told Americans what was going on in the world. I didn't know any of this until at least 2014. I knew that my great-grandfather was served in World War I because my parents have a lot of their things. Other than that, I didn't really know much, except that he was mean. He gained dementia and what is probably Alzheimer's later in life, and lived with my grandparents, my buddy and my Big Daddy. But I didn't know anything else. And but he lived in Jackson, Tennessee, and the Bryce Report. So, and it's spelled B-R-Y-C-E. And if y'all know me, you know that I spelled Bryson's name B-R-Y-C-E, and I did it specifically because I liked the name, but I never wanted it to be anything of any reference for anything other than the beautiful name and little boy that he was going to be. And so my great-grandfather Wilson, who when I was a little girl, we would walk down my grandparents' road, Amboy, in Memphis, Tennessee, and he would shuffle, and I would just skip and trollop, and then I would visit him, and then I remember when he passed away. I remember being really sad because he wasn't there. I was a little girl. So my great-grandfather, because he was mean, he was not a loving man, and from what I know and understand, he would sit on the back porch and just listen to the radio, and apparently probably drink. I don't know what he drank, but I know he would probably drink. That's the account that my father gives me. And his wife was so sweet, and my dad always said that she was a she was a choo. So I hope I take that account of her. But with that said, my great-grandparents lived in Jackson, Tennessee, which means that my grandfather lived in Jackson, Tennessee. And his name is Wilson Earl Nichols Jr. And he grew up, I think he was born in Mississippi, from what I remember what he's told me. And then they moved to Jackson, Tennessee. That's where he met my buddy, who was Bertie Tyree, I think this is right, Bertie Tyree Wade, which my grandfather, Pop Wade, great-grandfather Pop Wade, lived and raised horses. He raised walking horses. They lived off of, I can't remember, but it's across the street from the Church of Christ. It's where the YMCA is in Jackson, Tennessee. YMCA bought my great-grandfather's land years ago after he had passed away, and they sold the land to them. So my great-grandfather had my grandfather, Big Daddy, and in high school, my grandfather saw my grandmother walking at what was then called Jackson High School and turned into Jackson Central Mary, and he saw her walking in a green sweater. And as she was in the cafeteria, he knew that he was supposed to marry her. And they started dating, and my grandfather was an exceptional athlete. He held the record at JCM for the javelin throw for the state of Tennessee for years. Because after he completed it, they ended that competition and that sport at that school. So I think that school is now closed. But with all of that, my grandfather was Wilson. My great-grandfather was Wilson. Woodrow Wilson was the president, and the Bryce Report was what came out when World War I was out. There's all a link to that, which I never even knew or understood. But God always has a hand in things, and obviously He plots it out way before we even do. And so He knew about Bryson before anyone else. And there is a specific picture that I have with my grandfather, my Big Daddy. And it is of him holding Bryson in his backyard in his swing, where they would let the cats go out and play in the little cage. And I think sometimes I always knew it was a precious picture. But I think later you just realize more, because I have an even more precious picture with Bryson and my two grandparents, my buddy and my Big Daddy. And it was right before my buddy passed away. And then I have one more picture of him walking with my Big Daddy like I had as a little girl. That's why I love pictures. Because, man, they can hold on to some of the most beautiful things, even when the people are gone. So, that is part of my beautiful story, and I'm really not a huge part of it. But that's where God was laying a foundation that never in a million years would I have imagined.